how does he handle the big moment?
You have to take everything into consideration.
Why?
For what?
Come on, dude.
He sued everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Now we have to watch what's actually happening.
USA.
I'm good.
Hello again. Welcome back into First Take. Thank you so much for hanging with us on this Feel Good Friday. Molly Karam here with Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, and Will Kane will be with us in a moment. Stephen A., what are you hot on as we head into hour number 2?
What do I have? It's what we have, girl. Let me tell you something right now. Le'Veon Bell for the Pittsburgh Steelers is coming to the house. As Max would say, the best running back in football. Now that Antonio Brown got his money, let's see what Le'Veon Bell is going to be looking for. Plus, he'll tell us anything we need to know about the Steelers. That's how he rolls. Hour number 2 of First Take in the house. Coming at you right now. 4 takes, that's true. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes, you lucky. 3 takes, got me.
Colin Kaepernick will make it official today, opting out of his contract, making him a free agent, according to our Adam Schefter. Sources also are telling Schefter that he will stand for the national anthem because he no longer wants his past method of protest to detract from the positive changes that he believes have been created. On that note, I told you Will Kane is here, and I delivered that promise. How are we doing?
I'm good. Thank you.
I want to start with you on this subject.
All right.
What do you make of this with Colin Kaepernick?
I think that the news that Colin Kaepernick is going to stand up now for the next season, the day before, I believe Adam Schefter is reporting that he's going to opt out of his contract, he's going to be looking for a new job, is the final indictment, Stephen A., the final judgment, Max, the final nail in the coffin of one of the most hollow, empty, disrespectful protests in recent memory. The only thing concrete that's been established over the past 6 to 7 months is Colin Kaepernick's ignorance and disrespect for the idea of America. And I hope you'll forgive me for one moment if I just climb up on a soapbox and explain what I mean by his disrespect for America. There's been a lot of conversation, I heard it as recently as this morning, that it always has to do with the military. And set all that aside. When Colin Kaepernick chose to kneel during the national anthem and before the American flag, what he did was in broad indictment of our country. And what is America? What is the American experiment? It is unique in human history. It is the first time that we had a full embrace of individual liberty, of separation of powers, of due process, of honoring liberty as thoroughly it has been attempted in human history. And that is what, that symbol, that fact is what he chose to protest. And now for what? And by the way, it does not escape me that America has fallen short on those very ideals. Its great sin of slavery and treatment of black Americans were falling very short of those exact ideals. But the answer is to live up to those ideals, not to disrespect them. And for what? For what was all of this? What was that disrespect for? Well, at various times, Colin Kaepernick said it was something as broad as oppression. He said it was for murder on the streets of black Americans. He wore a Castro shirt to further muddy his message. And all of this is illustrated, guys, by the fact that now he stands up, because what significant change, and I've heard you both talk about it both yesterday and I believe some today as well, what has changed? What has he accomplished? Donald Trump's been elected. Was that the change Colin Kaepernick was looking for? People say, well, he sparked a conversation. And there have been some worthy ones. I've had them with both of you. I've had them on this network various times with various people. But the interesting thing is the conversation is different every time. Sometimes it's about race in America. Sometimes it's about things that aren't true, like murder, like cops murdering people. That's not what's happening in this country. There are injustices, and those should be discussed. But Colin Kaepernick has not been a catalyst for a healthy discussion yet that I can see. And this is all very clear by the fact that now he stands up. That shows how hollow this was. We were able to fill it with whatever we want. Sometimes worthy discussions, sometimes false ones. The hollowness Colin Kaepernick has proved in the past 24 hours.
So you're going to have to understand that you... Go ahead, Max. Go ahead. I'll wait.
No, go ahead, Stephen A. Please, go ahead.
Will Kane,
without revisiting the whole Colin... Go, Stephen A. I'm not talking. Go.
Will Kane, you're going to have to understand that you don't get to define what's hollow, what's shallow, what's ideal for black people. I am the first to sit up there and tell you that I got a problem with Colin Kaepernick. It wasn't his kneeling for the national anthem, particularly when he emphasized what his cause was, and it was not against our military men and women, but it was about racial injustices that exist in this country. I had a problem with Colin Kaepernick when he ended up looking like a damn hypocrite, because the biggest instrument of change that exists in this country, your right to vote, was something he openly acknowledged he refused to exercise. That was my problem with him. But as it pertains to what you just articulated, Will, I can't emphasize to you enough emphatically of how much we disagree. When you talk about him disrespecting this country, I'm sorry, I can't imagine a person that's black, that's living and breathing with blood sifting through their veins, that wouldn't emphatically disagree with what you just said. When you talk about disrespect and you talk about the iniquities that have been exacted against people of color in this nation, there is no question that it breeds hostility. It breeds contempt. Why? Because it emanates from frustration and this perpetual feeling that somehow, some way, no matter how great you are, no matter how much you do the right things, no matter how much you strive to work hard and to do the right things and to achieve the things that you aspire to achieve, there is always this figurative proverbial glass ceiling that doesn't apply to the Will Canes of the world. It applies to people like me and those who look like me. So even though I understand where you're coming from, what I am asking you to appreciate is the fact that there are certain things that you simply cannot, as brilliant as you are, and you are brilliant, just like Max is, there are certain things that you simply can't comprehend when it comes to black plight, because you ain't black. So as a result of that, when this man takes the position that he took, and you have millions of African Americans in this country who stood up and applauded him, it's what they're speaking about. It's what they're alluding to. It's the iniquities that have been exacted against us as a nation of people that affects our thinking. When you have been victimized, it is the most annoying thing in the world to us is when those who have not been victimized, or those who share a cultural identity to those who have victimized us, trying to tell us how we're supposed to react to it. It fuels us even more, because we're like, how dare you, of all people, come to us? And I'll say it like this, and I'll end it with this, Will and Max. If you remember, last year on First Take, I got into it with an African-American by the name of John Wooten, who works for the NFL. Great, great man. He wants to eradicate the N-word. So do I. I completely get him. I co-signed that. My issue with him is that he was in support of the NFL fining African-American players who articulated that word with one another. And my response was, who the hell are you, meaning the NFL, led by white folks, telling black people how they're supposed to communicate with each other, particularly when it involves a word that they are the ones who made it iniquitous. They are the ones who made it insidious. But then you get to punish two black people who are communicating with one another? The nerve. And this falls along those same lines. The nerve of anybody white telling Colin Kaepernick and black folks how they're supposed to feel or what is disrespectful when you're the one that stirred that level of frustration.
Will, do you want to respond to that?
Clearly, but I want to make sure we're all three in this conversation.
Go ahead, Max.
Go ahead, and then go respond to what Stephen A. said, and then I have something to say.
Okay. First of all, Stephen A., I would not purport nor attempt to define for black Americans what is a hollow point of view or what is an important point of view for them. What I did say, and what I will maintain, is that Colin Kaepernick's protest was hollow. What that means is it was never direct, purposeful, specific, so that it could accomplish a goal. That has been made clear in the past 24 hours because nothing has changed. I don't speak for black Americans, and for what it's worth, I don't think you do either. So when you say to me that no black American could share my point of view, that it was a disrespect for the American flag, I would suspect you are wrong. I would suspect there are black Americans who would see.
That's not what I'm saying.
You said it. You said that no one could agree with me that to see this as a blatant disrespect to the idea of America.
No, I was talking about the hollow point, Will. That's all I was talking about.
Here's the point of the hollow point. You went broad with me just now. Now, if I have proven anything in the past 6 to 7 months, is that I am willing to engage on this topic and extend respect and do my very best to empathize and sit in the seat of others. I will not always accomplish it, but I will always attempt it. And this is what I would say. In this particular conversation with you, Stephen A. Smith, you went very broad. You talked about racial inequities, something I would not disagree with, although we need to get more specific when we have those conversations. We need to talk about education, police tactics, whatever it may be, because we're not going to have unanimous agreement from start to finish.
Let's talk about that.
You went broad real quick, Max, and others do not. And that's the point of it being hollow. Anyone could make Colin Kaepernick's protest whatever they wanted it to be. And what that meant was it was for nothing. If it can be anything, it's for nothing. And Colin Kaepernick, by selling out in the last 24 hours for his next NFL contract, has proven that point.
I generally agree with that sentiment that Colin Kaepernick appears to be selling out, at least his process, the way he was protesting. in order to get a new contract, which is his prerogative. Also, Colin Kaepernick's given $1 million of his own money in the cause, in his mind, of social justice. I didn't give $1 million of my own money. Either one of you guys do that? You know, so he deserves credit for that. And I realize that my criticism of him is in light of that he's actually put his money where his mouth is, and he seemed to sacrifice something, although now that's put into question. His career, in a sense, jeopardized maybe when he didn't have much of one, when he didn't stand for the national anthem. Let me just say, Will, I understand your criticism of his kind of too broad, not specific enough protest. On the other hand, I always thought that it honors the American flag often when the flag is protested, because the flag represents more than anything your freedom to protest the flag itself. I mean, that's something that doesn't escape me, and that's one of the reasons this is the greatest country and greatest experiment in the history of the world, Will.
I would certainly back up the right for him to protest, but I don't think
whether
it necessarily
he should have actually done it is something else.
It doesn't honor free speech for me to cuss on the air right now. It's not always something honoring it by exercising it. I don't think him protesting the American flag was honorable.
Well, in this case, social justice, particularly for people of color, I think is a perfectly good cause to especially go at the flag in that way, considering the flag also represents, the national anthem, excuse me, also represents, especially when you look at the original lyrics, part of the worst part of the history of our country.
That's the interesting part, Max, because you brought up those lyrics of the national anthem. That's something a lot of people didn't even know in terms of the additional verses in the national anthem until Colin Kaepernick brought attention to it.
That's and he raised awareness, but let me just say about Kaepernick, and the reason I feel that he looks like a sellout right now, is, I know that's strong language, is that particularly to Stephen A's point about making public the fact that he didn't vote. If you care about social justice, if you care about issues like community police relations, mass incarceration, what role race plays in all of that and how it affects people of color, and before the last election you come out and say it doesn't matter, there's essentially an equivalency between candidates on those issues, look at what's happening at the Department of Justice right now as it relates to the Texas voter rights, right? Like the discrimination of the lawsuit in Texas that the DOJ just dropped, that Jeff Sessions just did a 180 on. The point is, there are major political issues the election had an enormous influence on, and Kaepernick's claim that that he didn't need to vote, and his claim that he's already done enough and it's raised awareness. If you thought it was important last year, Colin Kaepernick, it's 10 times as important right now to keep it up. So the idea that he doesn't, right when he's looking for a new contract, makes him appear to be a sellout.
Yeah, and there's one point of order, though. We do not know that he is choosing to stand solely to get a contract. Nobody's spoken to him. We don't know that for a fact. So you can say it appears, but we still don't truly know if that's the reasoning. And you have to applaud him for trying to be socially active, and maybe he got in over his head and didn't have the depth of knowledge, but not a lot of other people are doing anything, as you alluded to, giving $1 million.
Wait a minute. I do not have to applaud him. The second that he refused to exercise his right to vote, as a black man in the United States of America, I do not have to support that.
A lot of people didn't vote, Stephen A., and they didn't do anything socially active.
Wait a minute. A lot of people didn't vote, but they didn't bring attention to the plight, acting like they were trying to take a stand to be a conduit of change, and then turn around and drop the ball in that regard. Once again, I can't emphasize this enough. There are certain things, I'm just going to put it out there as controversial as it may be. There are certain things in this country you just got to be black to understand. And the fact of the matter is, when you look at history, when you look at what the movie Mississippi Burning was based on, when you study things of that nature and you recognize the blood, the sweat, and the life, the lives that were sacrificed in order for somebody to have the right to vote, knowing it's the ultimate conduit of change in the United States of America, to not vote is bad enough, but to stand up publicly and let the world know you ain't voting,
so
that is a bigger problem.
It's all for naught because he didn't vote.
By the way, I don't know, like, to be black to understand. I get the sentiment, Stephen A., but if you're going to point to Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney, they weren't all black. But they all understood the idea of social justice.
Colin Kaepernick,
I'm talking about the conversation right now in terms of what people are saying. I'm not talking about anybody that's not black couldn't understand. I'm talking about today's society, but go ahead.
Colin Kaepernick's contributions to various causes could be done. His social activism could be done without a broad indictment of the United States with the form of protest he chose. I can't applaud Colin Kaepernick's activism and indict his form of protest. And the breadth of our conversation, from Max talking about prison today to Stephen A. talking about the national anthem, illustrates my point. It has been and continues to be about whatever you want it to be. And that is a wonderful way to avoid any productive movement forward. Colin Kaepernick never had a specific point. He never did. He had a protest, and that was it. It was a disrespectful protest, and that's the end of it. And he has. No argument I make today is as true or as poignant as what Colin Kaepernick's actions over the last 24 hours have illustrated.
There. And clearly he didn't have the depth of knowledge, but I do give him props for at least trying, unlike some people. Thank you for being here, Will.
Unlike me, not some people. Me, I'm the one not giving him props. Well,
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, you, Stephen A. The NFL Players Association, on that note, wants the league to change its stance on marijuana use, but should they stay off the...
How does he handle the big moment?
You have to take everything into consideration. Why? For what?
Come on, dude.
He sued everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Now we have to watch what's actually happening.
USA.
I'm good.
Hello again. Welcome back into First Take. Thank you so much for hanging with us on this Feel Good Friday. Molly Karam here with Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, and Will Kane will be with us in a moment. Stephen A., what are you hot on as we head into hour number 2?
What do I have? It's what we have, girl. Let me tell you something right now. Le'Veon Bell for the Pittsburgh Steelers is coming to the house. As Max would say, the best running back in football. Now that Antonio Brown got his money, let's see what Le'Veon Bell is going to be looking for. Plus, he'll tell us anything we need to know about the Steelers. That's how he rolls. Hour number 2 of First Take in the house. Coming at you right now. 4 takes, that's true. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes, you lucky.
Colin Kaepernick will make it official today, opting out of his contract, making him a free agent, according to our Adam Schefter. Sources also are telling Schefter that he will stand for the national anthem because he no longer wants his past method of protest to detract from the positive changes that he believes have been created. On that note, I told you Will Kane is here, and I delivered that promise. How are we doing?
I'm good. Thank you.
I want to start with you on this subject.
All right.
What do you make of this with Colin Kaepernick?
I think that the news that Colin Kaepernick is going to stand up now for the next season, the day before, I believe Adam Schefter is reporting